right, race fans, Ryan Aho here, and the one and only Bert Lehman, bringing you episode 183 of the One to Go show. Bert, I got to be honest, kind of excited. Last week, record numbers, over 11,000 views. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. I know it was a little bit of a hot topic last week. Can have a little follow-up on that here this week as well. But
I think they were all tuning in to see how your picks went last week.
Yeah, not real good. That's a donkey award all by itself right there, Bert. I mean, literally, if you're ever in a pick'ems contest with me, let me go first, do the opposite. You'll be just fine. I've been sucking bad. I think maybe, Jeff Krause was on our show one time. Boom, record viewing. Maybe that was it. I don't know. I'm not really sure. So, but thanks for him for jumping on, and thanks for everybody for viewing. And of course, episode 183, Bert, brought to you by our friends over at Zeuli's Race Engines. Not a lot of racing, Bert. A lot of rain. Mother Nature, probably a donkey award to Mother Nature. She was not very cooperative last week. But we did get some racing in. One thing for sure, Zeuli's found their way to Victory Lane. Tucker Peterson, he parked in Victory Lane with the street stock. Justin Vogel, who's been a little cool as of late, parked in Victory Lane twice with the streeter. Ty Schuler found Victory Lane. So the one thing is for sure, even though there wasn't a lot of racing, they still find a way to win races. So not only do they have the horsepower, to go win races, they have the durability to win championships. Bert, it's getting to that time of the year where we're just about to the midway point where people start looking at the point standings and championships. Well, you need to have a good mill under your hood that's going to go the distance. If you can't beat them, join them, Zeuli's Race Engine. So on today's show, Bert, little follow-up from last week. Is Todd Staley from the USMTS to blame for Dennis McCauley getting fired? We'll talk about that first. Top 5 moments. Got some pretty good ones. Other news from around the area. Not a lot of racing. Some pretty cool stuff happened. Fan feedback. Got a lot of fans sending us information, sending us questions, sending us feedback. Thank you to them. Got a little bit of that here this week. Our weekly ass-kicking section. Bert finding his way back to the top in the pick'ems. Ryan finding his way back down to the bottom. Some bold predictions. So, and the fans are starting to partake there too, Bert. We have fans pretty much every week now sending us their 3 bold predictions. That's pretty cool. So tune in for that. So let's warm things up, Bert, with a little hot laps. Now, I'll just start by saying hot laps. Some of y'all forgot what hot laps are. Hot laps are where you warm things up, right? Some tracks don't have them anymore. I'm a firm believer. Every track needs them, but whatever. It is what it is. But here's the deal. What's hot today? What's the hot topic today? The hot laps, right? Before we get into that, Bert, how about a shout out to Brad Parson Ag Solutions. One thing we know for sure, we know this, if you have the right chemicals in your spray packages, you're going to have better results in farming. You're going to get higher yields, more profitability. If you want to learn more about the products he has to offer that are proven, he works primarily in Western Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. Give Brad a call, 320-219-3542. Again, 320-219-3542. Thanks to Brad. He's a racer, part of the racing community, has a lot of great products out there. Find out how he can help your farming situation. So I pose the question, Bert. Todd Staley, USMTS, right? He has the USRA as well. Is he to blame, right, for Dennis McCauley getting removed from the WISSOTA board? Well, people are like, what the hell are you talking about? What does that have anything to do with anything? It's a USMTS. Bert, so last week on the show, we were pretty vocal about the fact that a certain promoter, Don Shaw, called every single board member, right, except for one, by the way, and basically voiced his displeasure on how Dennis McCauley was handling some things and said that he should be kicked off the board. And lo and behold, he got kicked off the board. Well, then in some Facebook posts, there was comments made that said, well, that wasn't all of it. There's more to the story, but that's not for me to say. Bert, I talked to a WISSOTA board member. I did my due diligence. I talked to one of the board members, in fact, Mike Jordet, because it was 4-1. right? Gus Omenson, I believe, was the one because he's from the same area as Dennis. And I asked him, I said, what's the deal? And he says, you're about 98% right. He said, you can probably chalk a lot of it up to hurt feelings. We'll get into that in a second. But here's the other things, Bert. This is no BS. I can't even make this up. One of the things that they fired Dennis McCauley over was at the Wissota 100 last year on his camper. He had a couple different flags up there, one of them being the USMTS flag. What? What the hell are we talking about? The USMTS is basically the modified version of the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars. It's the modified version of the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series or the World of Outlaw Late Model Series. It doesn't have anything to do with Wissota. God forbid the guy's a fan of racing and likes other racing. He likes all aspects of racing. They said, oh, you got to take that down. You got to take that down. That's unprofessional. You're a Wissota board member. Last I checked, he's the Wissota board member that promotes Wissota racing 1 billion times more than all of the other board members combined. So go lay by your dish, right? Because this is ridiculous, right? He does his part. He did promoting. He had the best series in Wissota racing, but oh my goodness, he had a USMTS flag. He's had it up for years. Why? Because he likes the USMTS. Big deal. In fact, Mike Jordet owns Minnesota Truck Headquarters. He sponsors a USMTS car. Is that a conflict of interest? I would say absolutely not. One thing has nothing to do with the other, right? So Todd Staley, because he puts together a great series, the best modified series in all of racing, he got Dennis McCauley fired. Say that, of course, jokingly, right? But it's ridiculous. Well, how's that even a thing? And they're like, well, it was an argument. He didn't want to take it down. Nor should he have. Who gives a shit? Nobody cares. So I'm going to have a call to action, Bert. Okay, I'm going to have a call to action from the One to Go show. If you support Dennis McCauley, okay, and you're going to the Wissota 100, that's a topic all by itself, the Wissota 100, okay? But if you're going to go to the Wissota 100, okay, and you're a fan, and you're looking at this going, man, this whole deal's a bunch of bunk, go get yourself a flag. Pick your favorite series. Doesn't have to be the USMTS. Could be anything. Could be IMCA. You want to get under their skin, get that one, right? Could be IMCA, USRA, World of Outlaw Sprint Cars. I don't care what it is. There is nothing wrong with being a fan. I would be willing to bet that some of these board members that voted this way have probably been seen at racetracks at some point wearing a Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series shirt, a USMTS shirt, right? Who cares? Get a flag, get your favorite flag. When you go to the 100, loud and proud, wave it off the top of your hauler, the top of your camper, get a bunch of them, get all the series, whatever you got to do, and just do that just to get under the skin of some of these ignorant Wissota board members, okay? Bert, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, how is that a thing? What am I missing something here? I mean, what's your thoughts?
From an outsider looking in, all this news is news to me and everything. It just seems very, if they're that upset over the flag incident, it just seems very petty. And I mean, the purpose of a board is to better the organization, and it just seems like you have jealousy and people are just making decisions on a whim, and that's not how you run a successful business, organization, nonprofit group, anything.
No, it's really sad. And there's all kinds of different personalities, right? Some people are very mild, and they're like, they don't like confrontation. Some people are a little bit more vocal. When something gets under their skin, they're louder, right? That's just human nature, right? Any organization of any kind is going to have a number of people, right? Well, then it was cited that, well, it was essentially bullying. Okay, bullying. Well, basically they said, well, he wasn't asked for his opinion. Wissota even went on. Here's how chicken shit this organization is, Bert. They put a post on their social media. don't ever get a, basically, I don't remember exactly the words, but don't get offended by somebody's opinion if you wouldn't take their opinion in the first place. That's a shot at, well, Dennis McCauley, maybe me, maybe Kraus, I don't know. But like, what the hell is a Wissota social media person doing, basically taking live shots, right, at a board member they just removed? You want to talk about petty? Come on, right? So they talk about, well, he wasn't asked for his opinion and it was so in depth and it hurt that person's feelings. Bert, it hurt their feelings. Okay. So we had to get rid of him because that's bullying. You can't be hurting people's feelings. Well, please explain to me how the hell Bill Engelstead has a job there. He's the definition of hurt feelings. The guy's been an asshole the whole time he's been in Wissota, and he treats everybody like crap. Promoters, drivers, pit crew, tech guys from different tracks. Always has, always will. How is he still? He's a paid employee, and his level of professionalism is literally on a scale of 1 to Dennis McCauley. It's like a 3. Okay, I mean, it's brutal. Chris Steppen, another guy, known for flat out bullying people, right? Up in, he's done it forever. How is he still there? I don't know. I'm against bullying too. I mean, if you go over, if you get your point across and then you just keep going and going and going and going specifically on somebody, yeah, that's bullying. And maybe he was a little bold. He's a little harsh. I've had confrontations with Dennis myself. But the fact is, we're talking Don Shaw. Don Shaw. I got nothing against Don Shaw. In fact, I'm kind of like him in a lot of ways, Bert. Like, I've been a hothead. My pit guys be happy to tell you about times I threw my steering wheel, bounced my helmet off the deck tin, right? I've done it all, right? Don Shaw's done the same thing, completely had meltdowns at the racetrack, yelling, screaming at people. And he wants to get somebody fired because they were mean? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, if they're contending that that's bullying and that's why he needed to be voted off the board, I mean, basically kicked out of Wissota. So if a driver confronts another driver, is that bullying? Are you going to kick this driver out of Wissota and not allow them to race anymore?
That's a good question, Bert. I'm telling you, that's a good question. I mean, it's dirt track racing. There's hot tempers. There's emotion. There's passion, right? And some people don't take criticism well, and they're like, "Oh man, they were bullying me." This is a bunch of hogwash, right? So another thing he got cited for is last year he went into a private meeting with the board, and the employees were there, and I wasn't there, so I don't know the exact words, but he got all over the social media person for Wissota, basically saying this person don't do their job. We're paying them. They don't do anything, right? And I'm sure he was bold, and he brought a lot of facts and he brought a lot of numbers, and the good old boys club that we call Wissota was like, oh man, they blindsided that poor person. Well, if you ain't doing your job in a real traditional business, you're replaced, right? But guess what? They're not going to replace that person because it's family to somebody else that's there and buddies with Rod. So that just ain't going to happen. Okay. Bert, there's one more thing. Okay. So if people want to know what is everything that he got removed for, A, voicing his opinion when it supposedly wasn't asked for, which whatever. I'm gonna give people advice right now. Okay, write this down. If somebody criticizes or critiques anything you do, and they write it down or email you, and you don't like what they have to say, delete it, crumple it up, throw it away. Who gives a shit? Don't matter. People critique me all the time. Don't care. It is what it is. Don't put too much stock into that. People, we live in a world of reviews. People are always critiquing. I believe he did it with the right intentions, Bert. I believe that he's like, you know what? I want all these places to get better. Here's what I think is going to make it better. It wasn't asked for. It wasn't, they didn't talk about it on the board, whatever. Okay. So that's not grounds for firing, right? And, you have that. You have him coming down on Carson or Cameron for not doing her job. You have him having the USMTS flag. But the real bad one, Bert, the real bad one here is at the Wissota meeting last year in front of the room. Half the promoters don't even go to the meeting. About half of them were there. he was up in front of the room and he commended a lot of people, right? Only board member that did it. And he said, I went to a lot of different racetracks last year, and I had a criteria of how I kind of graded them, and I want to give a special award to the track that I thought I had the best experience at. So he gave an award to the Thunder City Speedway. Well, how in the world is that a bad thing? Oh, because that board member shouldn't single out favorites. That track's better. It's an award. He thought it was a great experience going there. So now we have board members and all that are piss whining because he commended a racetrack. Are you shitting me? That's the kind of organization WISSOTA has, Bert. And I got to be honest with you. When I said burn it down last week, burn this dumpster fire down because it's a shit show. The whole organization sucks. The business structure is absolutely terrible. You got a whole bunch of people that are volunteers. You ain't gonna volunteer anytime. People they got to pay their bills. So the whole business structure is stupid. And then you got, like you said, pettiness and jealousy and all that. And it's just a waste of time. It just grinds my gears. So anything else on that topic before we move on?
Well, my question is basically everything you just listed happened last year. Why is this all going down now at the end of June in the middle of a race season?
Because Don Shaw made a phone call or several phone calls. That's why. It was all because he critiqued two tracks. He didn't like what he had to say, and they got all butthurt about it, and they called the board members, and he got kicked off the board. Now, here's another thing, Bert. Okay, here's a question for you. You've been around a long time. In any traditional business of any kind, if you got a board member, employee, or whatever, and they say, hey, there's disciplinary action, right? Like they were, I guess, bullying or whatever words you want to use. If they were, maybe some kind of I don't know what the word is for it, but basically they just weren't acting right at work. Disciplinary action, right? Typically, isn't there a process, right? You have to write it down, document it, warn them, say, hey, we told this person this is their first warning. They said they won't do it again. Isn't that a thing usually, right? Typically?
Yeah, well, I was
Never
going to ask you before. I mean, does WISSOTA have any bylaws that spell out how a board member can be removed, what it takes to remove a board member, that sort of thing?
They do, and several tracks are looking into it, but by design, they're very vague. See, bylaws a lot of times are there to kind of cover everybody's ass, right? That's kind of what they're for. So they're written very vaguely, and I know there's some upset promoters looking into it, trying to figure out if, because the promoters vote in the board, they nominate and vote in the board, they're trying to figure out, is there anything there that specifically says that the board can remove another member? And it's really vaguely written. It doesn't really make much sense. And some of these, this is the thing, promoters, right? I mean, if you feel strongly about this, the bylaws need to change. Have them less vague. Get to have more control. The board should not have that kind of control, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if the promoters vote in the board members, the promoters should be the ones to remove the board members, not other board members, because you could get all clicky and, well, we don't like you, so we're just going to remove you.
That's 100% true. And I'm not saying that everybody on the board right now is part of a clique, but there are certain aspects of the board and employees that are part of a clique, right? So if the clique gets too much power, the people that disagree with them, well, they're kind of a thorn in the side. Let's get rid of them. They're a thorn in the side. Let's get rid of them. And you know how it is. You voice your opinion. You kind of call people out a little bit in a meeting and that they ain't doing nothing. And guess what? You have a target on your back. And then when any little thing happens, that clique is going to be like, oh, he gone. We're going to get rid of that one.
I mean, as dysfunctional as the U.S. government is, could you imagine if representatives could just vote to oust other representatives? I mean, that would be chaos.
100%. The whole deal makes no sense. And we bring this up because we're both passionate about racing. Puka's got some stuff he's dealing with. He's passionate about racing. Jeff Krause passionate about racing. We want things to get better. We criticize things. We call things out. Why? Because things need to change. We want this sport to be here in 50 years, Bert. We don't want to all of a sudden have WISSOTA die. We want it to grow and get better. Guess what? The way that they run things as an organization, and maybe the bulk of that lies on just the way things are structured, right? Maybe. But with the way it's going right now, at best, and I'm talking at very best, they can hope to kind of maintain. They're never going to grow as an organization. Ain't going to happen. And if you ain't getting better, by default, you're getting worse. And that's exactly what WISSOTA's been for the last number of years. And I'd like to see things change for the better, but who knows? I just don't see it happening anytime soon. So, Bert, let's jump into some positive stuff here, some fun stuff here from this past weekend. Our top 5 moments of the week brought to you by Daytona 1 Performance Lubricants. So as we talked about, Bert, Buck, the founder, the owner, right, of Daytona 1 Performance Lubricants, guess what? Hall of Fame member of NASA, right? NASA is kind of a big deal, right? But he's in there for his lubricants. The guy's way smarter than me. Got a lot of different products. Check it out online, Daytona 1 Performance Lubricants. Also, they give back to racing. They have the Daytona 1 Performance Lubricants Gen X Late Model Series. They run at I-94, Madison, and Watertown. He has a $10,000 point fund, so he puts money back into it. And his passion, Bert, is keeping money in the pockets of racers so they can continue to race, right? And one of his great products is tire treatment. People are like, "Oh man, tire treatment! Oh my God, it's voodoo! Can't talk about tire treatment." Well, I'm going to be honest with you. We also can't talk about $150 tires that we have right now for a modified, or $202 tires that UMP has. That's not a thing. That's ridiculous. That is not a sustainable deal. What is? Running your tires for a longer period of time at a higher level. They have products that will help you do exactly that. I know people using this product. They're running up front, they're winning races, and they're running old tires, Bert, doing so. They ain't putting on new tires every night, and they're still having success. So if a person wants to get information from somebody way smarter than this guy, call Chad, 507-828-3536. Again, 507-828-3536. He'll get you all the information you need on how to properly prepare your tires so that you can run them longer and compete at a high level and keep money in your pockets instead of in the pockets of Hoosier Racing Tire. So, number 5, Bert, let's head over to Eastern Wisconsin. Probably this could have been maybe a little higher, to be honest with you. I probably just slid this in there, but it should have been a little higher. What do you got, number 5?
The Dirt Kings Tour, they had their biggest race of the season on the eastern side of the state. They have some higher paying races on the western side of the state, but it was might have been a little over 4,000 to win at 141 Speedway, and Nick Avalink once again won a Dirt Kings race. Surprise, surprise. He started 7th, so it's not like he started on the pole. He hustled, let's just say he hustled to the front, and it's a good thing he did, because after lap 10, you could have cued that Johnny Cash song, I Hear the Train a-Coming, because the train was there, and there was no stopping it, unfortunately.
No, and he did his job. He got up there quick, fast, and in a hurry from the row 4, Diamond 45. I think it was 4,500 to win that one, so pretty solid payday for him. And another guy I want to give a shout out to in that race is the old X Factor, Jesse Glanz, with a runner-up finish. That's got to be his best run in a couple of years here. Kind of been not racing as much, struggling, trying to get that SSR working. And great to see Jesse Glanz with a podium finish as well.
Actually, Jaden Schmidt, who's a rookie in the division this year, he probably, if you would have had more experience behind him, he probably would have won that race, because he pulled out to a decent lead. But then the track rubbered down. All the cars were on the low side, right down at the bottom. And he caught the slower cars. And, inexperience, you think, okay, I got to get by these cars. And he went to the outside to try to pass one of the slower cars, and he slid right up to the wall. and Nick ducked underneath him at that point. Jaden was able to get back down. I mean, that's how far ahead he was of the other cars. He was able to get back down and maintain second. And then probably with 10 laps to go, coming out of 4, he tried to go on the outside of Nick. And once again, the car just slid right up to the top of the track, and he lost 2 spots. I give him credit for trying, but, you know, if he would have had more experience, he would have just stayed where he, I mean, actually, while he was leading and I saw the track locking down, I was thinking to myself, you know, if I had a radio, I would tell him, do not get out of line. Just, I don't care. Make the cars pass you on the outside. You know, if they're going to pass you on the outside, just, you know, tip your cap to them and say good job. But, I mean, they interviewed Nick after the race, and he even said, you know, as the race went on, he would actually slow down going into the corners because he wanted to leave some space between him and the slower cars in front of him. And that's exactly what Jonathan Davenport said after the World 100.
There's a reason Nick Anvelink wins a lot of races. He's very talented, but he's very cerebral as well. So congrats to him. And Jaden Schmidt, I have a feeling he's going to get some wins. Yeah, that was one of your bold predictions,
yep,
that he's going to get a win. And he looked really good. I think that's going to happen probably sooner rather than later. At number 4, the 1 TPO, Tyler Peterson. Bert, he started out the season kind of in a slump in the mod. We're like, man, he's just not really rolling. Bert, in his last 11 times between the mod and late model combined, in his last 11 races, he has 8 wins. The other 3, second, third, and the other one, he came from row 4, was battling for the lead, got together with Dustin Strand, got put to the back on a pretty questionable call. And I tell you what, he's absolutely rolling right now. So looking at this, Bert, he has 7 late model wins, 7 WISSOTA late model wins as a rookie, and 4 in the modified division right now. So he's been 6 late model wins, 2 mod wins in his last 11 races, and little bit of a rivalry of brewing. We like rivalries on the One to Go show. So Mason put in the video here. So if you're watching, you can see it. A couple weeks back, River City Speedway, Dustin Strand leading the race, TPO coming. Strand goes to the wall. They get side by side, and they both tried going to the same patch of real estate, and they called it on TPO. I don't know that I agree with the call. I like them both. I think it was kind of a bad call myself, but I do like them both. Let's just say he was not happy. Not happy. At Ada, this Norman County Raceway, Ada Nationals here on Thursday night, he may or may not have used up the old 71 when he took the lead, and he may or may not have had some comments. So listen to them here. We're going to actually put the post-race interview in here.
Karma's a real son of a gun. He gave it to me last week in Grand Forks when I was passing for the lead, so I gave it right back to him tonight, and that's racing, baby. That's a win for us, though.
Basically said, well, after last week, I kind of owed him one this week, and we gave him one. We got the win. So tell you what, he's fiery, and I was kind of thinking there was going to be a rivalry between him and maybe Johnny Broking in the mods, but it looks like his focus is shifting to late models, so maybe it's with Dustin Strand, but rivalries are good for dirt track racing, and there were 2 very good race car drivers right there. Number 3, Bert, north of the border, Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada, the Thunder City Speedway. They were supposed to have a triple header this past weekend. Mother Nature, of course, took 2 of those nights, but one of my favorite drivers growing up as a kid, Joel Kreiderman, he hit pay dirt, parked in Victory Lane in the WISSOTA Modified Division. I asked him, I said, when's the last time he won? He's like, I don't even know, like 12, 13 years ago, because he retired, took a whole bunch of time off, and he just recently, when they opened back up in Thunder Bay, got behind the wheel of a car again. But I tell you what, that was one of my favorite wins of the year by far, was seeing Joel Kreiderman find his way back into Victory Lane. Started on the front row, but I don't give a crap if he is the only car on the track, Bert. Joel Kreiderman won a feature in 2023 and really hasn't raced. I mean, last year he did, but other than that, he hasn't raced for over a decade. So tip of the cap. Congratulations, Joel Kreiderman. hopefully we can see him up front a whole lot more. Bert, I would love to see him come down to the States, right? To some of these specials, maybe the border battle this weekend, maybe a Labor Day shootout, maybe the legendary 100 at Cedar Lake, because he really likes Cedar Lake. I'd love to see Kreiderman come down, and so would a lot of fans down in our neck of the woods. Number 2, let's head over to the Houston's High Bank Nationals, Bert. Big payday for somebody. What happened in Brandon, South Dakota?
Well, I'm going to say David Gravel had a little bit of luck on his side, and he was able to claim the $250,000 to win show on Saturday night at Houston's High Bank Nationals, because Koifoy was he was on his way to win that race. I don't think anybody was going to beat him, but with like 10 laps to go, that motor grenaded, and that was the end of his night. And unfortunately, it didn't get any better for his teammate on one of the restarts, because McFadden, right?
Yep.
Flipped on one of the restarts and was out of the race. So both cars they were running well with like 10 laps to go, and then they were both out of the race.
I mean, imagine being the car owner and you're looking, there's 11 laps to go. And by all means, I mean, 11 laps to go is an eternity in sprint car racing, but he looked like he was pretty well under control. But imagine thinking, oh man, $250,000 payday, right? And like, you just got that emotion, right? And you're like, you just kind of, that energy is there, and all of a sudden you blow up. And then next thing you know, a car's destroyed. You're going, I mean, it's like from the highest to highs to the lowest to lows like that. But David Gravel said, man, it's kind of nice to cash in on some of the car owners' money, because, of course, his car owner, Todd Queering, owns Huset's and Jackson Motorplex. So kind of easy to put that show on, Bert, a couple years in a row when $250,000 payday goes kind of to yourself, right? So $50,000 per second. But congratulations, David Gravel, on getting that one done. And then we're going to head over to Menominee, Wisconsin, Red Cedar Speedway. Jim Carlson, a driver that's been racing, over 2 decades. I mean, I don't know exactly how many years, Bert, but he runs at Cedar Lake. He runs over at Menominee, Wisconsin. Bert, first career WISSOTA late model feature win. That is super cool. That's an example of a guy that's just passionate about racing. He loves it. Doesn't have the biggest budget in the world, right? He goes out there, he competes, he tries hard every week. But our number one moment for the One to Go show this week, Jim Carlson, first career late model feature win at the Red Cedar Speedway. Congratulations, man. It'd be great if he can win a few more. So
yeah, that's a huge accomplishment to win your first feature after that many years. And we've talked about this a lot on the show, where tracks need and rely on drivers like that to show up week after week, and they don't get the feature wins, but you can count on them to be there every week. So it's good to see him finally put it in victory lane.
Absolutely, 100%. So in other news around the region, before we do that, little shout out, Impact Health Sharing. So if you pay for your own health care, right, whether you are self-employed, or if you're an employee and your employer doesn't provide health insurance, or if you have a big business and you have multiple employees, whatever it may be, right? If you're a farmer and you're looking for coverage, check out Impact Health Sharing. Give me a call, 218-969-1380. We've been able to save people thousands of dollars annually. You can go to literally any doctor. I mean, you're looking for a family, right? Husband, wife, couple kids or whatever. You're looking on average right around $600 a month, $2,500 family deductible. So it's, and I can get you a quote. I can get a person pricing, but give me a call, see if we can help you out. So Bert, you talked a little bit about 141. We talked about the Diamond 45. Couple other races.
Well, I have a few more comments about that. Well, it kind of ties in with Shawano also, because as you know, the Dirt Kings race was scheduled against Shawano Speedway's weekly night. And most of the drivers who raced, the majority of the drivers who race the Dirt King series would say their home track is Shawano Speedway. So, to me, if you're going to schedule against a track that races that division on a weekly basis, and most of your drivers come from that track, you should have a plan to make sure that the feature is a good feature. and and if I was them, I would have ran, because they ran the late model feature the second to the last feature. Only the 4-cylinders ran after the late models. So they had 130 total cars between all the divisions. So they ran all the other features before the late models. And I would have ran the late models, the late model feature earlier. And I mean, 141, they never, farm the track. I've never seen them farm the track when I've been there. Once the races start, there's no farming. They just water. That's how they try to create a racy surface. So, I think they should have had a plan to farm the track at least a little bit or something, just to make sure it was a really good feature. I mean, I was looking forward to watching the feature there, because one of the best late model features I ever saw was at 141 Speedway 3 years ago. It was one of the best features I ever saw. But the thing with that feature was they got a lot of rain in the days leading up to it. And I think even the day of the event, they got rain earlier in the day. So the track was tacky. So for late model racing to be good at 141 Speedway, I think you need a really tacky track. And so something to think about in the future.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing, they're known for having a smooth racing surface.
Yes.
And with modifieds and stock cars and all that, they can, if it's dry and smooth, they can move around a lot better.
I mean,
late models can't move around very good. They need
actually,
to have moisture.
the sport they gave the modifieds the week off because the late models were there, but they had sport mods and Grand Nationals and IMCA stock cars. I mean, the stock cars and sport mod features, I mean, they were great. They were racing 3-4 wide. And,
Right.
So, I have no complaints about those features, but I mean, you got it. I mean, the late models were the headline show. I mean, it was a Dirt King show. They charged $20 to get in. And so, people want to see a good late model feature because that's what they're there for.
And I think that's a good note for promoters, right? I mean, whether it's a Challenge Series, Dirt Kings, Tri-State, whatever, late models require a little bit of brown. They got to have a little bit of moisture. Otherwise, they find that dominant lane and it's over, right? So maybe moving the late models up further in the show. I remember years back, I ran a modified over at Grand Rapids Speedway, and they put the late models ahead of the modifieds. Well, the late models could get, they kind of get strung out a little bit, not real racy. Then the modifieds would come out, race all over the racetrack. Well, it's the tires that allows that to happen.
And so, I mean, the late model heat races, they were fun and exciting to watch. So the late models can put on a good show there. You just have to take some steps and make some plans to make sure that you have a racy track during the feature. And I also do want to, we mentioned Jesse Glenn's earlier. Chad Mader was also there. So I'm glad to see those two Western cars make the trip over to Eastern Wisconsin to race in the Dirt Kings race.
Absolutely. There was 2 Dirt Kings races, or there was supposed to be.
Yeah, there was supposed to be 2 Dirt Kings races. They were supposed to race at Gravity Park on Friday night. And I mean, it's funny because I was gonna watch the stream. So 7:00, I go on and it's like, this program's not available yet. And it's like, what's going on? And then I was checking Facebook, and on the Dirt Kings Facebook page, it said the Dirt Kings show at Gravity Park is canceled due to track conditions. And that's all it said. It's like, it hasn't rained here in like 2 weeks. I mean, what are the bad track conditions? And well, somebody sent me a photo, and before any of the cars hit the track, well, I could only see turns 3 and 4, but the track from the middle of the corner down to the bottom was just slop and really wet. And then from the middle of the track to the fence to the top was bone dry. And where it was slop and everything, it was rough. I guess this is just what I heard from somebody that I talked to who was there. That the late models did go out to hot lap, and after the hot laps, the drivers did not like the track conditions, and
Not all of them though, Bert. Not
well,
all.
not all
some
of them. Well,
some
they
of
may
them
not have
raced.
liked them, but yes, some drivers did stay, and we'll get into that. But apparently, uh, I don't know if it was a vote amongst drivers or if Dirt Kings just said we're not racing here. But anyway, they decided they weren't going to race. And from my source, the track was not happy with that decision because people were there to see the Dirt Kings race, and they made an announcement, I guess, and it was kind of snarky the way they announced it, that the Dirt Kings feel like they don't want to race at our facility or something to that effect. So I think there is some animosity between the track and Dirt Kings, and but the track did, because they had fans there to watch late models. They told the late model drivers, whoever wants to stay, will pay $1,000 to win. And 10 late model drivers did stay. They raced 2 heat races, and they featured Justin Schmidt won the feature, and his wife posted on Facebook the next day that a quote from her husband stating, "It's dirt and I came to race," so that's why he raced.
Hey, that's a tip of the cap right there to that guy. I got to be honest, Bert. I saw some video footage of this, some streaming stuff that one of the wives or whatever, she did film the races, and I don't think her husband did race, and but she was filming it, and I don't think the track was bad. It was a little choppy on the bottom of 3 and 4.
The
But
heat
by
races,
the time they raced, Bert, it wasn't horrible.
in the heat races, it was definitely choppy. But yeah, I would agree. I mean, I've never raced, so I don't know how rough a track has to be considered really bad. But yeah, in the feature, it didn't look to be too bad. The problem with Gravity Park is it's such a small and narrow track to begin with. It's not easy for late models to race on it, even when it is in perfect condition. And that might have been went into some of the thinking of the late model guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed by that decision. I mean, they came into Grand Rapids, the Challenge Series did last year, and they're like, "Oh man, the track's wet." It's like it's freaking noon, right? And they're like, "Oh, we gotta cancel," and it's like it's freaking sand. It's rapids. It has to be wet at noon. What the hell are you talking about? And the same thing happened here. I'm not saying the track was perfect, right? It was actually dusty most of the way around the track, kind of dry, but the bottom of 3 and 4 had chop, but it wasn't the kind of chop where cars were just bouncing off the ground. They were kind of wavering over a little bit and getting through it just fine. I've seen cars when it's super heavy and rough, Bert, when they come in a little sideways, they hook and the car snap to the right. There was none of that. So I don't know, if I was Gravity Park, I'd be a little bit pissed off myself. I don't think this is on necessarily the Dirt Kings themselves, because he probably did. I don't know this for sure. I'm sure he did talk to at least a few drivers, and probably decided, you know what I mean? So it was probably a joint effort, but unfortunate deal there. Hard to say if they'll ever invite him back. It's like, hey, we'll just go ahead and have a special. We don't need you. We'll just invite other late models here. So it's kind of one of those deals.
Well,
so
and before we move on, I just got to say, because Toronto Speedway does race late models weekly. They did race late models last week, and they did have 10 late models. So my bold prediction from last week was wrong, because I said 5 or less. But they did have 10 late models, and they did not cut the purse. They paid the normal purse. It was a points night for late model drivers at Toronto Speedway. They didn't drop points for the night, and so it was Todd Frank won the feature, but it was a good opportunity for some drivers who maybe don't finish up in the top 5, top 10 and, get the higher payout in those positions to get a higher payout last week.
Yeah, Todd Frank getting her done in the old 21 ride there. So, Bert, over in our neck of the woods, Wissota country, not a lot of racing. Mother Nature kind of took her toll. But just a couple of observations I have. So, Dexton Cook getting a lot of grief. He didn't follow the series. He didn't do that. Well, like it or not, he's going to be the first Superstock driver to 30 wins in 2023. He's chasing a national championship, Bert. I would not be surprised if he wins 3 or 4 features again this weekend. Keep an eye on that 78K. Scott Ward, a guy that has been awful most of the year. I mean, awful, like literally terrible. Got the monkey off his back, parked in Victory Lane, got his first win of the year over at the Fiesta City Speedway in Montevideo. Speaking of Montevideo, they had 1,000 to win Midwest Mod Special. Your reigning Wissota Midwest Mod National Champion, Jake Smith, who's kind of doing a little double duty. He hit pay dirt, won a 1,000 to win Midwest Mod Special. Congrats to him. Probably the finish of the week, and thanks to my buddy Dan for sending over the clip here. Street stock finish over at the Red Cedar Speedway. Andrew Hansen had the lead. He did win, but a couple little bobbles there. Hunter Van Gilder was nose to nose at the line. Photo finish at the Red Cedar Speedway in Menominee. Thunder Bay, they had a triple header. Bert, they got in night number 1, right? And then Johnny Broking and Bob, they're like, you know what? Let's go up there. They're like, they made the decision. They got up there 5 in the morning on Friday just to be able to look at the facility, hang out. There were still people drinking beer at 5 a.m. at the racetrack. So they're like, we hung out, right? And then they basically turned around and went back home because they washed out the weekend. But he said, man, I tell you what, beautiful facility. I mean, it's brand new, right? So they did a great job with it. He said, it's flat, right? If you like a racetrack that doesn't have a lot of banking, that is the place to be. But there was definitely some passing up there. For example, Midwest Modified feature. Bert, they had 52 Midwest mods. 52, right? Jamie Davis, 20th to 2nd. There's some passing, right? And Chernosky won that one. In the Super Stocks, Rick Simpson came from row 3, drove by Chernosky to steal his second of the year up there. But he said, he goes, man, I want to get back up there and race. He goes, it was a lot of fun just for the few hours I was there. Really, you could just tell the vibe there. So I want to get up to Thunder Bay myself. Out in the Electric City Speedway, Great Falls, Montana, late model action. They had a Wissota late model race. Michael Leach. So the Leach family, Bert, owns Lowenbro. So you heard Longhorn by Lowenbro. That's the Lowenbro family. They're from Montana. That's his family that owns that. So needless to say, he got himself a Longhorn late model, right? First night ever in the late model, Bert, won the feature. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, he looked pretty darn good down at Speed Weeks. He had some pretty good runs in the modifieds. You know, he won a lot of Midwest mod races last year. Kid's a good driver. I've seen that done once before. One of my good buddies, Clint Larson, he made the jump up into the late model back, I think it must have been 2003, I think it was. His very first night ever in a late model, he won the feature. So it's been done before, but congratulations to Michael Leach on that. Little bit of drama over there in Wishick. I know Jaden Christ, who's been super fast in the streeter. Him and Hunter Damagala not playing real nice. Damagala came out on top. A few words were said after that one, but Damagala getting the win. Then in some series stuff, NLRA racing, Bert. They were supposed to have 4 NLRA late models. This is Wissota sanctioned, but it's an NLRA, Northern Late Model Racing Association. So they raced up at the Norman County Raceway in Ada, the River City Speedway in Grand Forks, Tyler Peterson winning both of those features. Fergus Falls, I-94 Speedway, Brad Singh got it done. The points right now, Dustin Strand leading the points. Brad Singh second and Mike Gresseth in third. Rebel Midwest Mod Tour, Bert, I think Mother Nature hates them because I've never seen a series, maybe Lucas Oil late models. It rains all the time. They got 1 of 4 and had to reschedule the bulk of them. Jaron Wibstad with the win up at Ada. And then, of course, the Structural Buildings Wissota Late Model Challenge Series. Both of them got canceled this weekend due to rain, and it sounds like they rescheduled those for later in the year as well. So with that said, Bert, we have a little feedback. get some fans, send us some stuff over. And before we do that, little shout out, buyraceshirts.com. If you need hats, shirts, hoodies, apparel of any kind, who do you go to? Well, you go to one of the experts. Who's that? That would be Jordan Tollickson and his crew down in Montevideo, Minnesota. For Racers by Racers. Check them out online, buyraceshirts.com. So I don't know if did I send you this one, Bert? I don't know if I sent you this. Let me pull this up. Are you? My bad. Bear with me 1 second here.
You didn't send me anything. No,
I didn't think I did. I was supposed to send you something to print off, and old Ryan dropped the ball. Donkey award to Ryan here. Okay, so Bert, I'm going to go ahead and read this. If I can find it here now.
I think I did get the email though. Also, I could try to find it and print it if you want me to.
Did you get it? Did you get the one from Wilmer?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, go ahead and print that off. Okay, go ahead and print that off. That'd be better. So while Bert's up printing there, so Bert, are you close by? Can you hear me still?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So we got one here from Tim. So Tim asked, he goes, Tyler Peterson is on a roll. Do you like his chances better to win the Wissota Modified National Championship or the Wissota Late Model National Championship in 2023? Now, here's a couple of things. He won the last two Wissota Modified National titles. Right now, we're through the end of June. He only has 4 wins in the Wissota Modified. Now, with that said, I think the winningest driver maybe has 6, so he's right in the hunt. In the late model, they only take your top 20 shows. He has 7 wins, multiple podiums already, and I tell you what, he looks like the best car in his area in the late model. So, Bert, based on that, modified, late model, or both for Tyler Peterson in 2023?
I would say if he's going to race enough in a late model, I would say late model.
I got to be honest with you. He might slow down a little bit in the modified, not literally on the racetrack, but I'm thinking right now that the late model, I mean, he's already dang near halfway there. I mean, it's a race to 20. I really feel like Chad Becker probably will hit 20 wins. We'll see if Skorcheski, Arment, maybe Scott Ward, a couple of them guys can keep him out of victory lane. But man, on Tyler Peterson, I mean, he's got 7 already. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for him to go to 20 as much as he can race that thing. So I think I'd probably agree with you, Bert. I think if I had to lean a direction right now, I'd go late model. So did you get that one from Bloomer?
Yes. Do you want me to read it word for word?
It's a little sporty. All right. It's a little racy. So understand, first of all, we're going to preface that we will comment on it. But understand this was an email sent to us. This wasn't Ryan and Bert writing this down. This was an email sent to us by a fan. Okay. So
the views and the opinions are not those of Ryan and Bert.
They might be.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
We'll see.
Sounds like Don at Cry 94 got his feelings hurt that Dennis had more cars running B mains every night of the tour than he had running the whole show for his big King of the Dirt weekend. Dennis goes and outworks everyone else on the board, independently brings in like $45,000 for his series and gives it all to the drivers. No draw fee, no upcharge at the pit gate, no series registration fee. The list goes on. Just take a look at the Wissota 100 handout if they ever put one out. The only thing Shaw brought to the Superstock series this year was a 9% increase in the cost of tires. Look at the reaction from drivers, not just the Superstock guys. We want people on the board who work for the drivers, not people who find new ways to nickel and dime us to death. Obviously, the other WISSOTA board members ride the cigar-shaped spaceships. Bloomer.
Signed Bloomer. Now I'm pretty sure that's not Bloomer. But I got on the Don Shaw stuff, we don't need to beat a dead horse on that. I mean, I'm not saying, and I will never say that Don Shaw doesn't do anything for racing, because he does. I mean, they got a pretty darn solid payout every week at the I-94 Speedway. It's a great facility. I mean, they got way more good things there. He's hot-headed, so am I. I'm not going to knock him on that. I will knock WISSOTA, though. The comment he says, look at all the nickel and dime stuff that they do at the WISSOTA 100. If they ever put a flyer out, Bert, last year, they wouldn't even put a flyer out with the purse. Okay. Why? Because they cut the purse. Bert, that was 2022. The purse was basically the same for God knows how long. So they actually cut the purse, right? Multiple years in a row. They reduced the purse and raised the fees to drivers. So what did they raise the fees? So on the fees, it's mandatory that you got to pay for parking. I talked to my friend Brad Parson. He went there. He wanted to go practice. He literally had to park so freaking far away from the racetrack that his wife said, I ain't coming back. This is absolutely stupid. They had to park way out back and still had to pay to park for one night to be able to practice. That's bullshit. I can absolutely see maybe charging like for premier spots, if you want a spot close to the track or a paved pit area, by all means. But if you're parking in the nosebleed section, that should be free. The fact that WISSOTA charges drivers to park in the middle of nowhere, they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, because here's how stupid they are. And I'm going to use this word. Yes, I said it. The people in charge of making that decision are ignorant, stupid idiots. Okay? Why? Because the WISSOTA 100 is a fundraiser. The proceeds from the WISSOTA 100 is the lion's share of what goes into the National Points Fund. Okay? So why on earth do they have to nickel and dime the frickin' drivers if the money's going back to the drivers to begin with? Get your heads out of your asses and stop it. They do not need to charge for parking. They don't need to charge draw fees. It's ridiculous. That frosts me. And it's bad enough when a promoter comes in and they have a couple one-off specials and they do all that stuff. But the WISSOTA Promoters Association to be raising the cost of drivers to get in when the money goes back to the drivers to begin with, that's just ludicrous. So this guy is absolutely spot on, and he couldn't have said it better. Dennis had an email out to all the tracks. We don't want raised pit fees. There's no draw fee. There's none of that. And I tell you what, it was well supported. So Bloomer or whoever you are, spot on, buddy. All right. So we're going to segue off of that, Bert. This one came from my friend Nick. And Nick's been a longtime guy, and he has a spot up at the Superior Speedway, Don Nicholas Speedway. And he goes, I'm sick of these FYE events. Sick of them, right? Not saying that there's certain aspects of 10,000 win for a modified is a pretty good deal. I'm excited to see that feature myself. But here's what people are sick of. So you take a track like the Don Nicholas Speedway, Superior, Wisconsin. Well, they have like a back straightaway section, Bert, where it's kind of like a tailgating section where you can rent that spot for the year, and then you can park there all year long, and it's your spot all year long, right? Except for at the FYE events. So they have three of them, right? They have the Mod Nationals, the Border Battle, and then they got the Can-Am Clash at the end of the year. Well, those spots are not valid. So you have to not only, you're paying for the whole year for your spot or pit parking spot or reserve grandstand spot. But when these shows come to town, right, you got to like repay for them all over again if you want them spots. That's horseshit. Okay. Now, whose fault is this? I don't know. Combination of people, right? Very easy to say this frickin' Chris Steppen, all his fault. Kind of is. Kind of big chunk of it's his fault, but it's also the fault of the Don Nicholas Speedway. Have enough of a backbone there to look out for the people that support your racetrack every single week, right? if you're doing this for your fans and for your drivers, you should be able to look at old Chris Steppen and say, look, buddy, here's the deal. They paid for their spots. These are their spots. I don't care who's running the show tonight, whether it's you, the World of Outlaws, XR, I don't care. This is their spots. They get their spots. They get them for the entirety of the year. I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I mean, coming in with a big show like that, they already have a big fan base. They already have the best car count in the area. He ain't doing not much special, right? So I don't know. I think that these tracks need to stand up for their fans and drivers a little bit better.
Are you able to watch the races from these spots?
Yeah. Yep. And they rent them all year.
And this is a special event?
Kind of, but they have other special events. They're good for their other specials, right? So, at what point? So they keep raising the cost of these spots, right? They keep going up every year, but they're eligible to use them for less and less shows. How many freaking FYE shows do you need to have at a racetrack? I mean, pretty soon fans are going to be like, why the fuck should I pay for a stupid spot when I only get to use it half the year? Stupid.
I understand what you're saying, but just to be devil's advocate, like at Shawano Speedway, you can buy a season pass. So, that'll get you into the races every week. But like when the World of Outlaws were coming there once a year, I don't think that pass got you into the races for the World of Outlaw show. You had to pay for the World of Outlaw show.
Yeah, they still have to buy tickets each week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
Their spot doesn't include their ticket. It's just their spot. So they still have to come in every week and actually pay for a wristband every single event, no matter what, right? That's no matter what. What they're paying for is the right, like, I want to sit here. And I want to sit here all year. That's what they're paying for.
Okay. So, so that's a little bit different then.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep, a little bit different. So that's something to look at. And I talked to people involved with that racetrack, right, from a couple different aspects, and they're like, we don't think it's right either, but I don't know. That's for Joe and for Chris to figure out. So I got another one here from a pissed off Midwest mod driver. Okay. So I don't want to keep beating on individual racetrack. So in the event, Bert, that weather's coming into the air, right? Like you can look in the sky, right? And you're like, getting cloudy, radar's showing, rain's coming. We got to get this show on the road, right? We've been there. We've been to many racetracks. That happens from time to time. He's like, why on earth would they still do the 4-wide salute, still do victory lane interviews, still do a 30-minute intermission, right? They do all this stuff, and then 3 or 4 of their features rain out, right? Or one track had them fog out and whatever, right? And this happens. It's not just a couple tracks. This happens everywhere. Weather comes in. I like the 4-wide salute. I like victory lane interviews, right? But if I had to choose between let's get the freaking show in or doing this extracurricular stuff, cut this stuff out. Let's get the freaking race in, right? And again, this happened last weekend. There was, and this guy here is a traveler. He's like, I don't know if I'll be able to make it back for the makeup feature or not. Well, here's a solution to that. Because I like interviewing the winner. I do top 3 maybe sometimes. In the event of weather, and if you have a long program, you could do this here too, because none of us want a 5-hour freaking race program. I mean, if your show's going long, you got to start cutting stuff out, right? We can't have 5-hour programs. Why not go down into the pits after the races, Bert, right? Or have somebody that can go down there during the races, whatever, that's linked to their Facebook account. Go Facebook Live and say, hey, I'm here with, I'm here with whoever. I'm here with, Bob Smith, and he won the feature. And Bob, tell us about your sponsors. You can do that on live and not take away from the show to keep the show going. So that's a solution to the problem. But have you seen that? What's your thoughts on that, Bert?
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, 100% about, getting rid of all that other stuff if there's rain coming your way. I mean, I agree with you that, you know, racing is in the entertainment field, so you need to do things like four wide salutes and all that stuff for entertainment. But if there's weather coming in, you have to get the races in because that's your main entertainment. So you got to do what you have to do to get that in. And I mean, I know this wasn't in this situation, but if it's a special event, you got to be willing to move the features around to make sure that your premier, whatever that special event is, whatever the premier division is in that special event, that you get that feature in for sure.
Yeah, some of the stuff you'd think is common sense, and I get it. When things happen, you overlook stuff or whatever. But moving forward, so if you're a promoter, if you're watching this, you know, when this stuff is coming in, you got to just keep the show rolling. I mean, most tracks are pretty good at this, but I think he's spot on. And the last one we have there is from Don, and he says, you know, there's a topic for you this week. A lot of racetracks, lots of them. They jumped the gun, Bert. There was tracks that canceled 11, 12, 1 o'clock. They're like, oh, the forecast looks like rain, and not all of them got rain, right? And it's like, so your thoughts? I do have some thoughts on that.
Well, the national series, they started doing that during the COVID year. It seemed like that's when it kind of first started. That, well, I mean, there were some races that were canceled like 3 days ahead of time because the forecast was bad, you know, for 3 days from now. Well, a lot of times the weather people, they can't even predict what's going to happen 3 hours from now, let alone 3 days from now. So, but yeah, I mean, that does seem to be somewhat of a trend where tracks now are just, oh, it's a bad forecast, we're just going to cancel it. And maybe part of it is because of the high gas prices, and you know, they don't want to hear people complaining if they drive all the way there and then it gets rained out.
The Lucas Oil Series and World of Outlaw late models, they have like travel money. So I know that a couple of them have a deal where if they sell any tickets like on race day, the track has to pay out the travel money to the drivers. So they cancel early because they're like, we're not paying that. It looks like it's going to rain. I can kind of see it, right? When I was racing, Bert, fuel prices were a lot less, and I was still broke, but fuel prices were less, and I used to get pissed. I'm like, what do you mean you're canceling? It's going to be nice. Like, what are you talking about? But two sides of that, right, is, I mean, that's the freaking gambling addict going, who cares? I'm ready. Let's roll the dice, right? Not my money.
Wow. Well, and I mean, this was what, at the end of May, when Dirt Kings was supposed to be at Mississippi Thunder, right. And they got rained out as they were going to go qualify. And I mean, a good chunk of those drivers come from Eastern Wisconsin. I mean, that's a 4-hour drive or whatnot. Right. And I mean, I'm not blaming MTS for not canceling, don't get me wrong, but I'm just giving an example of, you know, that was a situation where, you know, they did drive all that way and it didn't, you know, the rain did come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think nowadays, if it does rain and all the drivers are there, you literally just spent all their money. That's like they're trying to alleviate that. If they do get part of the show in, now they spent their own money, right? They're paying their employees and all that. And even if they do get them in, if the weather looks absolutely terrible, you get a little sprinkle rain, the crowds are less, you're probably going to not have a very financially good night. So, I mean, I want to see racing as much as anybody, but I can understand, I guess, why they do that. I mean, it's just smart business. So, Bert, our pick'ems here from last week.
Well, I actually have a fan question from Bert the fan.
Wow. Let's have her. What do we got?
How many cautions do you think a car should be able to be responsible for before they're told to exit the race?
Well, typically there's a 2-spin rule, right? Usually first one you go to the back, second one you go to the pits. But I'm thinking there's a story here. What do you got?
Well, Well, actually, there's two instances. I was watching Lucas features Saturday afternoon. I was watching Friday's features Saturday afternoon, and this one car seemed like every time there was a caution, it was because of this one car. And then they made the comment, well, he's going to have to retire from this race because of the 3-spin rule. Well, I didn't know Lucas had a 3-spin rule.
I did not know that either.
So then I go to the races at 141 on Saturday night, and it was one of the IMCA stock car races, and it seemed like every caution was caused by this one driver. He brought up four cautions he brought out, and I even said to my friend, he would have been out of here if Lucas was running the show.
Right.
But yeah, so I just thought that was kind of funny.
Two. I like two, Bert, and you know what grinds my gears is you see it with Lucas, you see it with World of Outlaws, and I get it, right? I get they're trying to protect the drivers, but when people are like, something's wrong with the car and they literally pull over and stop and they bring out a yellow and they come back out on the track and 3 laps later they stop again. It's like, if you're intentionally stopping the race like that, I mean, if you have a flat tire, it's one thing, but I don't know. I mean, we're trying to figure out how to have a 3-hour window here. Letting people cause 4 cautions is not the answer to that. Let's just be honest.
I agree.
So speaking of Lucas Oil, our pick'ems last week, we picked Lernerville, the Firecracker 100. Of course, RTJ kind of had a little bit of a rebound there because he struggled, kind of self-inflicted night number 1. Anything stick out to you from Lernerville this past weekend other than RTJ bounce back?
Other than his bounce back, well, RTJ versus Superman in the heat race on Saturday. I don't know if you saw that, but Superman wasn't real happy with the slider that RTJ put on him. RTJ, when they interviewed him, he said he didn't mean to, so I'm sure they probably talked afterwards, and he probably apologized to Superman.
He didn't mean to. Okay, guys. Okay.
Earl Pearson Jr. Was not a happy camper in one of the features because, they have this huge bank on the inside of, I think it was 3 and 4, and somehow he got over the top of that bank and landed on top of a culvert, a manhole cover, and actually tore the manhole cover off of it. And so when they moved the car, you could actually look into the drainage system, and the announcers told Ben Shelton to go down there. And Ben Shelton had a funny line because he said something about, I don't know the name of the clown though in it, but he mentioned the name of the clown. That clown might be down there. So, but nice. Yeah, Earl Pearson Jr. was not happy. He was out of the car, helmet off. Cars came around again. He flipped off the driver that he felt was responsible. And then they actually interviewed him while Earl was standing on the side of the track. And he expressed his displeasure, and he said, I'll be talking to him real soon. So
I'm sure he did. So at the end of the day, RTJ victorious. Boy, he's won some big ones this year. Absolutely killing him. He's got like a 200+ point lead in the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series right now. Stretching it out. But remember, right? He could be ahead by 1,000 points. Doesn't matter, right? Because the top 4 go into the Dirt Track World Championship, and that we're going to talk. Let's just say I got a little something for you. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So okay. we'll come back to that. Okay. I promise. Challenge Series, we're going to pick the late model Challenge Series for Wissota. Both of them rained out. World of Outlaw late models, they were at 81 Speedway and at Off-Road. Dennis Erb Jr., $30,000 payday. Bobby Pierce won at Off-Road. Pretty good race. Herb was strong. He kind of struggled early in the year, but ever since that Illinois Speed Weeks time, he's kind of rejuvenated himself, and he's kind of found some speed over the last few weeks here. What stuck out to you in the world of outlaw late models, if anything?
Ricky Pierce or Bobby Pierce. Bobby Pierce is Bobby Pierce. Bobby Pierce continues to have a strong season in the world of outlaw. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I would have said he would have dropped off the tour by now, but he ain't dropping off the tour anytime soon. He's going to follow this thing to the end. And where was Chris Madden? I mean, he was there, but he wasn't there.
It's kind of like the Brad Sweet effect, right? Madden's still leading the points. How miraculous is that? But Pierce is only 4 points back. Nick Hoffman's only 6 points back. And there's a whole bunch of drivers within 100. I mean, the world of outlaw late model battle that might go down to the very last race of the year. That one is really, really good. But I'm kind of keep an eye on that rookie. Nick Hoffman he's going to make some noise. Now, World of Outlaw Sprint Car action. They had the Houston High Bank Nationals. Night number 1, Kyle Larson. Night 2 went to J-Mac. Night 3, Logan Schuhart. And then, of course, $250,000 to David Gravel. Night number 1, good buddy of mine, Kevin Engel from down in Huron. He ended up upside down. Kind of a lower dollar team there. Just likes to run some of the local big shows when they're in the area, but that one didn't work out very good, Bert. He tore up some stuff. Rough night for Roth Motorsports on the final night, even though Shark Racing and Roth Motorsports had a lot of speed. Gravel was the most consistent, and Donnie Schatz, he didn't make the feature night 1, and I think his best race was 11th, which was the final one, but I don't know. I mean, quite honestly, Bert, I think the only time Donnie Schatz is fast now is when we put him on the not hot list. We put him on the not hot list, boom, he comes out, wins a couple, we're like, oh, he's back, right? And then he fades away. I don't know. He just, something ain't missing. I mean, I'm just going to say it right now, not hot, Donnie Schatz, not hot. We'll see if that can rebound this weekend, but they're bringing that show back next year. Crowd was amazing. Racing was good. They had to fight a little weather, technical difficulties, but overall, it was a pretty good show. What stuck out to you at Houston's?
In the driver interviews after the race on Saturday, and they talked to the top 3 or so, and every one of the drivers mentioned the crowd and how great the crowds were every night that they were there. So that's good to see large crowds at events that pay a lot of money.
Yeah, we might like late models better than sprint cars, but I tell you what, the crowds prove that the world of outlaw sprint cars have a huge following across the nation. So our standings right now, Bert, Curtis leading the way at 81. Bert climbing up from the cellar, not quite the cellar, but you're close. 78. Mike's at 75. Jeff and Dan at 69. Kent at 67. Brad at 64. The old 71A at 62, literally just getting whooped. And Carl's at 55. Bert, if I get passed by Carl, I think it's time to just I don't know, copy somebody else's picks or something. This week we got 4 World of Outlaw late model shows. One of them going on right now. It's Tuesday. That's at Mason City. Fargo races tomorrow night. And then Grand Forks on Friday. Fergus Falls on Saturday. Cedar Lake Speedway is hosting the World of Outlaw Sprints this weekend. Muskingum, which is Dresden, Ohio, $30,000 to win for the Lucas Oil cars. We're also picking the Wissota Modifieds at the Gondikla Speedway, $10,000 to win in the border battle. So, Bert, let's jump into the last lap, brought to you by our friends at Dirt Track Supply. So if you need any racing parts, you need an aero chassis, you need safety equipment, tires, where do you go? Go to somebody who supports racing. They do it at a high level. Give Ron and Trevor a call over in Watertown, South Dakota. They service a lot of racetracks. They help a lot of racers. They've been doing this deal for a long time. Dirt Track Supply in Watertown. So this weekend, Bert, couple big shows in the area. I want to give a little shout out. Superior's kind of got some pretty cool things happening. I'm not afraid to give them some donkey awards once in a while over there, Bert. So we should probably give them a little love. The border battle 10,000 to win. I said last week on the show that I don't think there is a 10,000 to win modified chauffeur with Soda Racing. I was incorrect. Donkey award to my dumbass on that one, by the way. So 10, that's one of my home tracks. I'm getting inducted in the Hall of Fame. I can't even remember there's a 10,000 win modified race there. So that's this weekend, Friday and Saturday. You can catch that on Dirt Race Central. But they also, Joe sent me over a deal. So they have some bonus bucks. They put together a pretty nifty point fund for an 8-race series, Bert, for the late models at their own facility. And the first one rained out. I'm not sure if they rescheduled that. But this weekend, June 30th and 1st would be race 1 and 2, 2,500 to win each night for late models. And then you can look at their website to kind of see when the rest of those races are. They do have a 5,000 to win show. That's on July 28th. So that's a pretty good payday. But in that series of races, which is essentially 8 races, the high point driver at the end of them 8 races, Bert, $6,000 bonus. So that's pretty cool. 4,000 for second, 2,000, 12, 11, and they pay back. It's $250 for 15th place. But we're talking 8 races in a $6,000 payday. Bert, to win the Wasota Late Model National Championship. Okay. Now, today, it's your best 20 shows, which means you're going to have to run at least 25, right? Minimum, if you're on it, right? Probably 30, maybe more to be in contention for 10 grand to win. Bert, this is 8 shows for 6,000 to win. That's a pretty good deal. So hats off to Joe Staria and all the folks at Gondik Law Speedway for just putting that together for their drivers.
And you don't have to travel if you're already from the area. You don't have to travel all over the place because all the races are held at one spot. I mean, if you're not from the area, then you have to travel to get there. But
right, I mean, and that's exactly right for the people that are in that core area. And these are all good. The minimum pay for the winner at any of these shows is $1,500. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 of those shows were $1,500 to win. And then then the Twin 25s has a pair of 2,000 to win shows. 2 of them are 2,500 and 1 5,000. So all of those shows pay well, and then they have the great point fund on top of it. So yeah, like you said, if you're an area driver, man, that's you don't want to miss those ones. That's for sure. So NASCAR news, Bert.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
You want to touch on that, or you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, as you stated, we're recording this on Tuesday, and it was reported earlier today that, some bad news for Jimmy Johnson and his in-laws. It
Right.
appears, all the details aren't in, but it's being, they think that because both of his in-laws are deceased as well as one of his nephews, and authorities think it was a murder-suicide, and I just can't even comprehend what the family's going through. So thoughts and prayers for him and his family, and a very, very sad deal.
Yeah, I know my buddy Chase has been very, he pitted for him, right? He was one of the engineers, so he knows, of course, Jimmy very well. Don't know if he knows the rest of everybody. He might, but yeah, just a tragic deal. And that just goes to show it don't matter what level of financial success or fame that you might have. Everybody has issues. So we like to bang on people once in a while, right? When they do stupid things, but we also like to praise them when they do good things. So it's a combination of both. But you think about this and people you just don't know what's happening in their lives. So, me included, I'll call myself out. Sometimes we need to maybe be a little bit cautious on maybe how hard we bang on people when stuff like this happens, because everybody's going through something and we don't know what that is most of the time. So sad deal. So our 3 bold predictions, Bert.
Before we get to the bold predictions, I just want to update from last week. I'm actually working on the July issue of Full Throttle magazine, and my cover story is about Johnny Whitman winning the Clash at the Creek. And so I interviewed him this week. We talked about last year's ordeal where his tires were found to be not up to specification. And we talked about this year's victory, obviously. And he did say his tires did pass this year. So you can put that behind him.
Congratulations. It feels a lot better once you know for sure, because he's been through it once. So yeah, thank you for that. 3 bold predictions, Mason Aaron's videos. Check them out online, YouTube, Facebook, does a lot for the sport. Thank you to him, of course, for, he does all the editing for our show as well. So couldn't do this show without him. So want to thank him, and check out he's got a lot of great content, a lot of B-roll stuff, a lot of really fun stuff that he does. And one of the most easygoing guys that like everybody gets along with. We share our opinions, probably me more than you sometimes on the show. He just sits and giggles and he's like, that's not my part. I'll enjoy what everybody does. And but he's just super good guy, and I want to thank Mason. So off the board this week, Bert, we had Jeff Krause on the show last week. We'll start with him. So he was representing the listeners, right? He said Donnie Schatz was going to win $250,000 at the Houston High Bank Nationals. He didn't even get a top 10, so that was wrong. He said Brandon Shepard was going to win a pair of features this weekend. Well, he won 1 qualifier, but that would be it. He didn't win. He did not win 2. Bert, you had some come off the board this weekend as well. You said David Gravel was going to win 2 of them down at Huset's. Kind of a bad beat. He had a couple seconds in a first. It's kind of a bad beat, so that's a no. You said Bobby Pierce was going to win 2. 1. Close. You said Shawano was going to have 5 or less cars. That was bold. That was swinging for the fences. That was a no as well. I had a couple come off the board as well. I said Ryan Timms was going to have a pair of top 5s. I don't know if he had any top 5s. I don't think he did. Struggled. A while back, I said Joel Kreiderman was going to win a feature this year. He did. So that's a yes. So, Bert, our standings right now is I have 25 correct, 41 incorrect, 37.9%. You have 30 correct, 42 incorrect, 41.7. I'm narrowing the gap just a little bit here, closing the gap. And the listeners are not on the board. They got a bunch that are still kind of like they were pushed out, but they have 5 incorrect, 0 correct. So the listeners are
we caught up with everything now? Because last week,
we are.
Okay. All right.
Yep, we are. Yeah, he went through that. I should probably.
Okay.
Jeff can maybe send that to both of us, but he has a separate spreadsheet now.
Okay.
With all the stuff
fine. Okay.
Yep. Now, but as we were looking at that, Bert, we came across a little something here. On episode 164, the old 71A here said that David Gravel was going to win the World of Outlaw Championship in 2023. About a month later, on episode 168, Bert made the same prediction. We're going to have to kind of maybe go to our jury of peers to see if that's allowed. I don't think we can make a prediction that's already made. So in order to rectify the situation, kind of feel like you should probably add to that.
Okay, I'll say David Gravel will win the World of Outlaw Sprint Car Championship by less than 50 points.
By less than 50 points. Now, there you go. He added to it. All right. So this week, we have our guest listener, Dan. He sent us 3 bold predictions as well. I have mine. You have yours. So what we do each week is we make 3 predictions, sometimes bold, sometimes not so much, and we keep track of if we're right or if we're wrong. We've been doing that now the whole year. And Bert got off to a big lead, but I'm kind of starting to inch towards you a little bit. And the only rules really is it's got to be something that either A, it for sure happened, or B, it didn't. It's not an opinion-based deal. It either did or didn't happen. So, Bert, I'm going to start with Dan, then we'll go to you, then we'll come back to me. Okay? So Dan's first pick is the smooth operator Bobby Pierce is going to finish on the podium at every World of Outlaw late model event this weekend, right? So there's 4 of them. If one of them rains out, it's all 3. But all the late model events that happen through I-94, Bobby Pierce will finish on the podium, and he's going to leave the I-94 Speedway with the World of Outlaw point lead.
So does he get double points then?
That's kind of a yeah, we might give him a double for that one, because that's not, I mean, chances are, right? I mean, if he finishes podium
well,
on all
if he's
of
on
them.
the podium, that yeah. So
Yeah.
okay. All right. My first one is, and you almost said it earlier this in the show. Well, you kind of did actually, but Dirt Kings will not be back at Gravity Park Speedway in 2024.
Yeah, so that one's going to roll over till next year when the schedule comes out. But boy, after this weekend, they're going to have some butt kissing to do to make that happen. So Gravity Park will not host a Dirt Kings late model race in 2024. Okay. So I'm going to go with sort of late model action here. So Pat Capella owns KME, and he threw right before the Challenge Series opener, he threw together a $20,000 point fund that included the Gondikla Speedway, Hibbing Raceway, and Halberline Speedway and Proctor for the late models, accumulating points from all the shows throughout the end of the season. Okay, $10,000 to win. Kevin Burdick will take $10,000 of Pat Capella's money, and he will literally upset the apple cart, because the next 3 drivers in line are all KME cars. So he's going to be not probably wanting to pay that, but he will, of course. But Kevin Burdick's going to win that $10,000.
Okay. I am going to say David Gravel will win at least one of the features at Cedar Lake this weekend.
Okay. I picked him, so that's probably not going to happen. Just saying. I'm going to go Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series here, Bert. Right now, RTJ, Ricky Thornton Jr., has got over a 200-point lead. As we talked about, that means nothing. That just means he's one of 4 that make it into the Dirt Track World Championship, the Final 4. How it works is kind of like the NASCAR deal, where if you're in the Final 4 going into that race, the highest finishing driver is a Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series champion. I already made a prediction saying that the point leader going in is not winning the points. So RTJ is going to he's going to be very vocal, either by social media or an interview or both, proclaiming how ridiculous the chase format is in Lucas Oil Dirt Late Models as far as the points go. And I'll put an end date on that of December 31st of 2023.
Well, RTJ does get vocal on social media. Now that he's racing for somebody else, I don't know if he's more politically correct than he was in the past. But I remember when he raced at the Clash at the Creek at 141 Speedway, he was leading in points after the heat races, and then they informed the drivers they were redrawing the top 10, and he was not happy, and he voiced his opinion on social media. So he does do that.
He certainly does. All right. So I think we go back to Dan now, right? Mm-hmm. So I made 2 picks. You made 2. Dan only made 1 so far. Okay. So Dan's second pick is there will be 40 or more WISSOTA modifieds at the border battle this weekend at the Gondikla Speedway.
Okay. Well, this kind of contradicts my second bold prediction, but I'm going to say that the 71A gets shut out again in Pick'ems next week.
Wow. You're kind of an asshole. All right.
I had to do it.
All right. That's probably a pretty safe pick. It's kind of a bunt. At this point, that's a bunt. That's not a home run. That's a bunt at this point. All right. I see how you are. All right. I'm going to go. Well, I'm going to go back to Dan, and I'll do mine last. So Dan's third and final pick is Chris Smokey Madden, who is currently leading the World of Outlaw late model points. He will finish the 2023 season no better than third. So he'll finish third or worse in the final point standings in the World of Outlaw late models. And right now he's leading, so that's pretty bold, I think. And if he's running like 18th right now, right? If you said Dennis Urban Jr. is not going to finish in the top three, yep, probably. Okay, but Smokey Madden's leading. So my third and final pick, I'll go with World of Outlaw late model on this as well. Right now, third place in points driver is rookie Nick Hoffman. At some point in the month of July, may only last one night, may last the rest of the year, but at some point in the month of July, the Thrill from Mooresville will have and will hold by himself the World of Outlaw late model point lead. Not ready to call him the champion yet, but he's going to have the point lead in July. He's been on fire. He's been running good. So, Bert, that's episode 183 in the books. Anything else to touch on? Any weekend plans here for the 4th of July weekend? Going racing? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm Dirt Kings will be at Outagamie Speedway on Friday night, so I'm planning on going to the Dirt Kings show at Outagamie, and then I plan on going to Shawano Speedway on Saturday.
Sounds good. Well, I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm going to Greenville, Mississippi right now with a load, so we'll figure that out when I get back. So, as always, thanks to all of our sponsors. I'm Ryan Aho. That is the Bert Lehman. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.